Before we continue with our presentations from clinicians and researchers, we are going to take a moment to do a spotlight on the work of the EHE Group. So first up is a gentleman that many of you may already know and love. Hugh Leonard is the chair of the trustees for the EHE Rare Cancer Charity UK. Hugh is not only a tremendous advocate for EHE patients and research, he's also a wonderful teammate, and I appreciate having the opportunity to work with him. Hugh will be speaking for 10 minutes, providing us a spotlight on the EHE Group. Please welcome Hugh.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny, for that lovely introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night to everyone on this call, depending on where you're sitting. As Jenny's pointed out, I've just got 10 minutes to provide you with an overview of the EHE Group's collaborative research ambitions. So without any more ado, I'm going to get straight into it. I don't seem to have the controls here, so could someone move on to the next slide? A little bit of history to start with. 2015 was a seminal year for the EHE Group because that was the year we established the first 3 EHE foundations, one in the USA, one in the UK, and one in Australia. Since then, we're delighted to have Canada join us in 2019, and hopefully this year we're going to see EHE Italy joining us. So wonderful to see that growing group of EHE foundations developing. In 2019 and 20, we were able to secure 3 also major awards, which was achieved in America, one from the Peterson Foundation, one from the private donor, and one from the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, for which we are extremely grateful indeed. And those 3 major awards, coupled with some fantastic grassroots fundraising, allowed us to first fund a postdoctoral researcher in Dr. Rubin's lab in 2006, and from then on, a number of other important pieces of research. We're very pleased with how that has gone. We think the impact has been significant, and I think we can show that better on the next slide. So if we could have the next slide, please. On this slide, what you see on the left-hand side of the slide is what we understood was the EHE position in 2015 when the foundations were formed. And really the only major piece of EHE research taking place at that time was Dr. Rubin's lab in the Cleveland Clinic. Now, I do have to be honest here and say that was the EHE research we were aware of. There may have been other pieces of EHE research happening. So I apologize completely to anyone who feels that they should be on this slide in 2015. But when we were starting the foundations, Brian was what we understood to be the main research taking place. Over the rest of the chart, you can see what is the research, EHE research, that is taking place at this moment. We have multiple research projects now underway in predominantly the UK, Australia, and America. We have also had one piece of research undertaken in Canada, and we hope that we may add a second piece of research there. We're also delighted to be able to tell you that we have just signed a funding agreement for a collaborative piece of research in Europe, where INT in Milan and ICR in London will be coming together to do a piece of research on biomarkers that will also be collaborating with MSK in New York. So that's another great development. I'm not going to mention all of the projects that is on this chart, but I just wanted to highlight just some of the developments that are taking place at the moment. We're about to launch EHE biobanks in both the UK and USA. I think we've heard a lot about the importance of capturing samples and data. And so these 2 biobanks are a fantastic development, and we hope will enable us to lead to biobanks in other countries. This year, we're also hoping to launch a major global EHE retrospective study and also a global EHE patient registry. And we can do these because we have contact with a worldwide EHE community now through our Facebook page. In Australia, Dr. Helen Kavnoudias is heading up a global study on the safety and efficacy of IRE ablation for the treatment of EHE livers. And that's important to us because in many parts of the world, IRE ablation is still not available for EHE patients because it hasn't yet been proved to be effective. So we're trying to get to that point. In the USA, we have 2 centers of EHE research now, both funded by the major grants that I talked about. One is Dr. Rubin's research that will at the Cleveland Clinic, which we hope will be accelerating and expanding thanks to Brian's extraordinary EHE mouse model, and I think Brian's going to be talking about that shortly. The other is the International Center of EHE Expertise at Memorial Sloan Kettering that Dr. Tapp talked about this morning. We're funding a PhD in the UK, led by Dr. Valery Kuskov, and Valery gave a fantastic presentation about that this morning. And we're funding Dr. John Lamar's project in the USA, which he presented also this morning. It's not all about funding, though. One of the things we also bring is the worldwide EHE community and their experience and information. And we're working hard to try and maximize the involvement of the EHE patients around the world in important international studies, such as the ISKS project in Australia, the MOST project, and the TOX project, also in Australia, all under Professor David Thomas, who I think is talking later on this afternoon. So we're excited about the progress, but there is much more to do. If we could go to the next slide. Oh, back one, there we go. When we set up the charities in 2015, we recognized that there were a series of tests or gateways that we needed to get through each in turn if this was going to work. The first was grassroots fundraising. Could we raise material funding for research? The second, if we were successful with the first, was could we then get genuine interest in EHE research from high caliber researchers and research institutes? And thirdly, if we were able to do that, would we then be able to look to access larger scale funding to allow us to build the EHE research program? I hope that the slides I've shown you here have demonstrated that those first 3 gateways are now open, and now we face the fourth of our tests or challenges, which for us is to try and build our EHE program into a integrated global research program where we can optimize and integrate that research through multiple centers. If we could go to the next slide, please. This is what that global research program might look like, in which we would be, with the EHE Group at the center, helping to fund and provide patient data and support out to different geographical locations. We've identified 6 here on this wagon wheel. And what's interesting, I think, is that we are already now funding research in 5 of those 6 geographical sectors. You might ask, why do we need a global approach? You know, doesn't that make it more complex? Why don't we just keep it simple in a smaller area? I think the problem we face with ultra rare cancers is that resources are spread very thinly over any area. Patients and their samples and data are sparsely distributed. Clinical experience and expertise is limited, of course, because the disease is so rare. Research experience and expertise and interest, perhaps, is well spread out. And importantly, unfortunately, funding sources are also spread over very large areas and are hard to find. So the reality is that for the EHE Group, we can't afford, or we do not have the luxury of just focusing on one country or one region. Our program needs to access global research and clinical expertise in and within an open and collaborative process. So our goal is to ensure that at any point in time in the future, the research that we're driving is addressing the critical issues in the right order and in the right manner to optimize the program, both in terms of delivery times and costs, and of course, avoiding wastage and duplication. The problem for us is we can't do this on our own. We are not research and cancer specialists. We cannot do this without your help, those of you who are sitting watching this program. So what might that help look like? If we can go to the next slide. It's the same wagon wheel, of course, but now the arrows have turned round and are facing inwards as we seek the advice and guidance that we need from people like yourselves, from the experts, as we try to pull together and form this international research program. And I think we've seen several speakers already allude to the need for global involvement, global data, and collaborative work, which we absolutely agree with and hope we can be part of the process of putting that together. Now, we recognize that not everyone is an expert in every area of cancer, so we'll need different people to help us in different areas. But then, having developed an overall strategy, then it would be great to be able to bring those people together occasionally just to help us review what is happening. And once the program is formed, then we'd also like help in how do we manage the review process to maintain and ensure that we are optimizing delivery and collaboration and communications. So after this conference, we are going to start reaching out to some of you to seek your advice and input as to what this program should look like, what should it include, what are the key priorities at the current time, what are the priorities that are maybe slightly further out. What we are acutely aware of is that your time is very precious and very limited. So we don't see this, and we will absolutely ensure that these will not be long-winded engagements. We would hope that these would be, in fact, relatively short, sharp interactions with people, with us doing most of the work in trying to pull together the information we get and then throwing it back out for further review. I hope it goes without saying that if there's anyone today listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, I could add something to that, I'd like to be part of that, then please get in touch with us. You don't have to sit and wait for us to make contact. Please get in touch with us, and we would be very grateful. And in fact, in this last slide are the contact details, emails of key people in each of the 4 locations, the UK, Australia, USA, and Canada. So please don't hesitate to reach out. It would be fantastic to hear from you. That's all I was going to say. It's a very fast overview of what we're hopefully going to achieve. I'll join everyone else in saying thank you to everyone who has presented today and will present. We couldn't do any of this without you, and we all have very, very strong vested reasons for all of this week working. So thank you very much indeed, and I'll hand over back to Jenny.